On today's podcast, we're talking about the role empathy, reciprocal accountability, and trust play in leading people in creating compelling team cultures in the world we live and work in today. Stay tuned to learn more. Welcome back to the Thermostat with Jason Barger. If you're currently on a commute, a walk, or just a micro break in your day, glad you're making time to step back, to think, and to reflect on the next steps on your journey. I've never been more convinced the best leaders and team cultures in the world are the ones that make time to step back, breathe in good oxygen, and calibrate their thermostat. I hope today's conversation leaves you feeling grounded and inspired. Now let's dive into today's topic to engage our minds and hearts in order to authentically lead and create compelling cultures wherever we are in the world. Hey everyone, it's Jason, and welcome back to the Thermostat Podcast, wherever you are and however you're coming to the podcast today. Welcome in. So glad you are here. We have reached 300 episodes, so sound the alarms. The fireworks are going off. Amazing that we are here, that we've reached 300 episodes, which is totally hard to believe from my end. So thanks to everybody out there, the listeners, most importantly, the way that this has continued to grow, to spread, the energy that I feel from people based on this and the feedback that I've gotten from people. So great and so kind of amazed, actually, that we're already at 300 episodes. So again, thanks to everybody who's here. If you've been with us from the very beginning, so glad this continues to add value to your life and your work, and there's more great stuff ahead, so I hope you'll continue to chime in. And also, for those of you that are new to the podcast or have been invited in and come in, I just remind you to Google my name, Jason Barger, and any topic around leadership, culture, mindset, any of the stuff that we talk about on this, any topic that you're kind of interested in. And with 300 episodes, your chances are you're going to find one that you're looking for. I've also been joined by so many great thought leaders and friends over the years, people that are inspiring and powerful voices in the world today, that you'll want to check out those episodes again. My commitment on the 300th episode and beyond is that I want, anytime you're listening to this, I hope this breathes some good oxygen into you just as a human being, but then also helps you think about that temperature that you're trying to set in your life and your work. And my hope is that this gives you some things to think about and help you be more intentional and strategic in that temperature that you're aiming to set in your own life and work. So glad you're here, and welcome into the 300th episode. If you'll quickly, again, before we get started, if you'll just do me the favor on this, great episode, if you will rate the podcast 5 stars, of course, on whatever platform you're on. If you'll leave an authentic review in your own words. Why are these messages important in the world today? And then also, lastly, if you not only subscribe to the podcast, but if you'll share the podcast, if there's episodes that resonate with you, or you think, hey, our team, your team at work, or your friends or colleagues or whoever ought to listen to an episode, and then let's get together and talk about what it means for us. Those are great ways in which the messages are amplified and continue to spread. So thanks to everybody out there who does that and continues to support this pod. We'll keep trying to bring you some good stuff. Not too long ago, I had just finished keynote speaking and leading a half-day session with a company where it was focused on servant leadership and shaping culture in today's workplace. The audience were a bunch of superintendents of a large construction projects for office buildings, schools, hospitals, and multi-use spaces. At the end of the presentation, and as I was greeting people and saying goodbyes as people left the venue, one of the superintendents came walking up to me, somebody who had been in that role for years and years and years, and had led these giant construction projects. But he came walking up to me, and he looked to be in his 60s. He had a long, Duck Dynasty looking, a very cool beard, this real, long beard. And he walked up to me and he said, "Man, I wish I had learned this stuff 35 years ago." And the look in his eyes was awesome. He said, "Man, it was out of excitement, but it was also a little bit of regret. Man, I wish I had learned this stuff 35 years ago." And he went on to say, "When I was growing up in this business, there was really only one way that we did things. You get people to do what you want them to do by fear and anger and intimidation. And he said, you had to be a hard ass in this industry to get anything done. Or that's so what I thought. And I paused for a second as he was telling me, and I asked him back, I said, and how did that work out for you? And he turned to me and he said, well, I did get a lot of shit done. He said, kind of grinning, and kind of, we laughed for a second. And then he said, but you know what? I sure ran a lot of good people off. I sure burnt some bridges. I messed up some relationships internally with teammates, but also with subcontractors and actually owners of projects. And I also messed up just some projects in general. And we went on to compare war stories for a few minutes about the wreckage that often comes from that top of the pyramid. If you've heard me talk about that top of the pyramid dictator style of leadership that is focused on power, control, and coercion. In fact, I don't call it leadership, even though I know some people refer to that as leadership, that actually that top of the pyramid dictator style of leadership focused on power, control, and coercion, in my opinion, is not leadership. Yes, you can get people to do what you want, but it isn't the way that I would define leadership. And I had shared as a part of the presentation I gave that day, I'd shared the image of flipping that pyramid upside down and seeing leadership, defining it in our own minds and our own hearts differently, that leadership is about service. It's about mission. It's about relationship building and empowering the gifts of other people to help us accomplish something that we can't on our own. So it's not about power and control. It's about service and connection and trust and empowering people and working together to accomplish something that's greater than us. And so as he and I sat there for a few minutes chatting about all this, he finally left our conversation again by saying, I wish I had been taught that 35 years ago, and that was how my bosses showed me. That's how they modeled it for me. I wish I had learned this 35 years ago. Well, in today's world of disruption, of disengagement, high rates of change, and extreme low levels of trust, if you've heard me talk about and cite a lot of statistics on different episodes recently, I would say a different approach to leadership isn't just a good idea, it's a necessity. So, on today's podcast, we're talking about the role empathy, reciprocal accountability, and trust play in leading people in creating compelling team cultures in the world we live and work in today. Stay tuned to learn more. Before we dive deeper, let's pause, take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Many teams and organizations right now are realizing that they need to do both. They need to engage the minds and hearts of their people in person, where everyone in the room can experience the energy of congregating together and find clarity for the road ahead. And they also need to continue to find ways to engage the minds and hearts of their people virtually, with those who are working remotely or at a distance. So, if you are in the process of planning your next team meeting, company all-hands event, conference, or culture summit, and are looking for support with a powerful keynote speech, facilitated team conversations that are the currency for change, or deeper development on leadership mindset and an intentional strategy for the culture you're trying to create, I hope you'll contact us at jasonvbarger.com, jasonvbarger.com. It is my privilege and our honor to partner with great people to provide support in these areas. We want to breathe oxygen into your leaders and throughout your organization so you can set the temperature you want for your culture. We look forward to connecting with you soon. I hope you'll contact us at jasonvbarger.com, jasonvbarger.com. It is my privilege and our honor to partner with great people to provide support in these areas. We want to breathe oxygen into your leaders and throughout your organization so you can set the temperature you want for your culture. We look forward to connecting with you soon. Food sustains us all. It gives us energy, and when we eat the right things, our bodies feel better and our performance typically follows. You don't even need a nutritionist to tell us, to validate that state, that like what we put into our bodies helps us have energy and helps us feel better about ourselves, and our performance typically follows. So when I'm pressed about the characteristics that leaders, when I think about this analogy of what should leaders be eating, what are the mindsets that they ought to be carrying or consuming, so that what is it that leaders are consuming, practicing, digesting, so that their performance is better for those around them? Many characteristics and traits come to mind. Over the next few podcast episodes, I'll be referencing many of them because I get asked this question a lot. For today, I think about the world we're living in and working in today, and there are certainly certain leadership styles that just don't work. Again, my example earlier of that top-down, style, dictator style of leadership, just doesn't work in the world today. And again, by work, let me make sure that I that I define this. Because all of us can think of examples in our history or people in positions of power that quote unquote got shit done by being that dictator and using power and control to push their agenda and coerce people into doing what they want them to do. Of course, those kind of examples are all around us. But so is the wreckage that typically follows that path. And again, I'm not. Of course, we could spend all day coming up with those examples of in our history or people in positions of power that have gotten people to do what they want. But that's not the kind of leadership that we're talking about. I've shared on past episodes that I've asked a question to literally groups all around the world. Tell me the characteristics of the most compelling, influential, exceptional leaders you've ever experienced or been around in your life. And not one time of asking that question literally to groups all around the world, not one time has somebody talked about that kind of top of the pyramid dictator style, of power and control kind of leader as the most compelling to them. In fact, what they often refer to is what I would call flipping that pyramid upside down, is they start to describe somebody that was a real servant leader to them. And it doesn't mean they were soft. It didn't mean that they weren't, able to have courageous conversations. Of course they were, but they talked about their connection to serving the people around them, developing them, empowering them, talking with them, coaching and developing, not power and control. And so when I think about some of the traits that are compelling to people in today's world and don't just, quote unquote, get shit done, but also bring people together, they bring out the best in others, and they create cultures that people actually want to be a part of. These three characteristics float right to the surface in the conversation. And again, these aren't the only characteristics, but here are three that I'll stay with this acronym of this sustaining elements of food, and this kind of analogy around food is these characteristics are what the best leaders in the world right now are consuming, practicing. It's what they're eating. And so let me break this down, the E.A.T of it. The first one is empathy. They get in the business of caring about what the people around them care about. They seek to understand the positions, the perspectives, the experiences of others, and then connect with them in authentic ways. The adage, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, I referenced that on a recent podcast, that comes to life when the people on your team truly feel like you care about them, and that you show empathy, not just feelings, but interest in how they are thinking, how they are feeling, and what opportunities do they see to further the mission or develop the project or whatever that may be. The best leaders are digesting this, practicing this, consuming this. Doesn't mean they're perfect, but are thinking about how do I create that connection with my people by listening and trying to understand how they are thinking, feeling, and seeing things from their perspective. The second characteristic is accountability. And I encourage you to go back to I did a whole episode around this topic of redefining what the word accountability really means, because every team and organization I go into talks about wanting a greater sense of accountability. I've never heard a leader or a team say they don't need that. If everybody talks, say, yeah, we want to improve accountability. The problem is that they haven't always defined what true accountability means. It's often referred to in this kind of negative connotation, as you've heard me talk about. And it famously kind of carries that connotation throughout many teams and organizations. Because the way we talk about it is that it's only about holding someone accountable. And it has that kind of negative sense of kind of catching them doing something poorly. And yet the true and compelling form of accountability is the fact that it's reciprocal. It's a two-way street. When we are in relationship with one another, that a boss and a coworker or teammates or in a relationship, it's reciprocal, and we both are accountable to whatever it is we're trying to accomplish together. And in fact, we are often more accountable to each other than we are less. More times than not, we are doing what we said we were going to do. And of course, we need to talk about the things. We need to have those courageous conversations that I've referenced in other episodes, done whole episodes around how to even have those courageous conversations, and are you courageous even to mention them so that they can become more manageable. Of course, you need to have those when something gets off track, but we also need to catch people and celebrate the ways we actually do what we say, the ways in which every day we are being accountable to each other. The ways we align our expectations and our actions together so that we, in a reciprocal nature, are both pulling in the same direction. And the leaders and the organizations that are kind of practicing this reciprocal accountability and truly acknowledging the ways in which we are already accountable to each other are the ones that end up then having an outcome of this third characteristic, which is trust. And lastly, I'll just focus for a second on trust. We're always either building trust or deteriorating trust with those around us. Every moment, again, culture shaped by the way we think, act, and interact. Well, in every relationship and every moment, we're either building trust or we're deteriorating that trust. And it's a byproduct of how we think, act, and interact in the culture. And you've heard me talk about the fact that we're living and working in very low trusting environments these days. The Gallup stat of only 23% of employees trust their leaders and direction of their organization. Yet, what we know is people crave trusting cultures and being a part of communities that help them feel special. When that is lacking, their performance suffers. And when it is built or when trust is invested in and cultivated, the results also tend to follow. I did a whole 4-part series on this trust idea. If you want to go back and listen, just again, Google Jason Barger and trust, and you're going to see a whole lot of different, whole 4-part series that I did on the different elements of trust and how we build it or lose it, and also the dynamics that are in play individually and is within our teams. So what we know is that culture shaping matters more than ever right now in organizations. And it doesn't just magically happen. It's led and it's intentional. And it has to do with those mindsets that we are, eating each day. What are we digesting? What are we consuming? What are we practicing? And so what are we eating so that we can be creating this kind of thinking, acting, and interacting within our cultural ecosystem? And as you pull back, and look at organizations or teams that are creating these kind of compelling cultures, you'll see that empathy come to the surface. You'll see this kind of reciprocal accountability that they have in each other, that they're all, kind of ambassadors for their culture and what they're trying to accomplish together. And in the outcome of that, the outgrowth, the byproduct of that is this higher trusting relationships, which lead to higher results. And in those types of cultures and those types of teams, those types of organizations, they tend to retain more of their great people and also attract more people that want to be a part of. And it doesn't happen by accident. It's because it is led and co-created by all. So as always, let me leave you with a couple of questions for today's episode. In what ways do you have the opportunity to show empathy and care about the people around you? How could you help redefine accountability into a two-way street? And what behaviors would build trust rather than deteriorate it? Cheers to you and cheers to the path ahead for all of us. I hope today's episode got you thinking in some good ways. I hope it breathed some good oxygen into you so that you can calibrate your own thermostat and think about any adjustments you want to make in your life and your work. If you have any thoughts, feedback, questions, or if we can be helpful to you, maybe be a partner with you and support your team and organization in the development of leaders, culture, any of these kind of topics we talk about on this podcast, then I hope you'll track us down, jasonvbarger.com, jasonvbarger.com, or email info@jasonvbarger.com. And we'll listen, we'll connect, and we'll see if there's a good match to help amplify these messages and help contribute to the culture in your organization for the one that you're trying to build into the future. And lastly, I'll just remind you again, thanks for everybody that rates the podcast, reviews the podcast, shares the podcast, all of those great ways. And lastly, I'll just remind us all to step back, remember, be a thermostat, and breathe good oxygen. Thank you for listening to today's podcast, and I hope the messages and questions stimulate positive change along your path. As always, if these messages resonate with you and add value to your life, I hope you'll help amplify them throughout the world. Please rate, comment, and share on whatever podcast or social media platform you're using, and share this podcast with the people in your life or work who should be part of these conversations. That way, this spirit does, in fact, spread. If these messages or developing leaders and culture would be helpful to you and your organization, please contact us at jasonvbarger.com, jasonvbarger.com. And remember, we are all ambassadors for the culture we want to create in our life and work. We have to own the vision we want to be a part of. The future of leadership is you, is me, is us. Be a thermostat.